All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eve Belfance, and I'm the Law Director for the City of Akron, and welcome to the first meeting of the Charter Revision. Wanted to, first of all, take a moment to thank you very much on behalf of the city and the mayor for the time that you will be spending on this matter that happens for our city every 10 years. I thought I would take a moment to introduce some of the other members of the administration law department here that will be participating as we go forward. And then, of course, I will hand it over to Bill Rich, who is going to be chairing the meeting. So with that, I'll start with Yamini Atkins.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yamini Atkins. I'm the Deputy Law Director here for the city. I look forward to working with all of you, and we are, looking forward to, helping with any and providing any support that you need throughout this process. And I guess our next person we'd like to introduce would be Sean Bowman, who is also a member of the City Law Department. Sean, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Sean Bowman, City of Akron Law Department Assistant Director of Law. I know many of the faces on here, but not everybody. But I'll be assisting with discussions on certain charter sections when the time is right.
Okay, Brian, how about you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. Brian Angeloni. I'm Assistant Director of Law at the City of Akron. Pleasure to make your acquaintance, and looking forward to moving this process forward.
And Tammy Kaleo, Tim, you want to come forward? And she's here with her mask. So she's going to be.
Hi, Tammy Kaleo, City of Akron, Assistant Director of Law. I'm helping Yamini out, taking notes for you.
Okay, and Ellen, I'm sure you've already, everyone knows Ellen, so she can introduce herself.
Hi, yes, I think I was probably the first person many of you talked to about this commission. My name is Ellen Nisht. I'm Press Secretary and Senior Strategic Counsel for Mayor Horrigan, and I'm very excited to get this commission started. Not what I envisioned at the beginning of the year when we started selecting your names and putting this together, but I really appreciate all of you taking the time to do this on Zoom. I know the mayor deeply appreciates your service to the city.
Okay.
All right, we'll hand it over to you, Bill.
Okay. I think it would be good for the commissioners to introduce themselves to each other, since not all, I imagine I know not all of us know each other. So let me start. I'm Bill Rich. I'm an emeritus professor of law at the University of Akron, where I had the privilege of teaching 4 of the people in this meeting and the mother of another person in this meeting. I'm also the chairman of the Summit County Board of Elections, and other things I won't bother to mention. So let's see, how should we do this? I think I'll just read, go from top to bottom, left to right on the screen. John Blickel, you're muted.
I got it. John Blickel, president of Rubber City McDonald's, lifelong resident of Akron, graduate of the University of Akron's Business and Law School.
Jim?
Jim Simon, resident of the City of Akron for the last 20 years, but went to St. Vincent St. Mary's High School and University of Akron School of Law. And Professor Rich, he can't really count as teaching my mother, because my mother graduated law school about 3 years before I started. So he is much younger than one would expect had you taught my mother law school at the normal time.
Thank you. Pedro?
Hello, everyone. My name is Pedro Avalos II. I work at St. Sebastian's School. I've been living in Akron for 6 years, father of 5. I'm also the president of West Akron Baseball and Softball League, and most recently a graduate of Mayor Horrigan's Citizens Institute Class 3.
Okay. Thanks. Matt?
Matt Timbrook. Moved to Akron 15 years ago to go to grad school at the Bliss. Worked in politics for a while. Now I actually work as a tax consultant, doing research and development, tax credit studies, and cost segregation studies.
Thank you. Mark?
Mark Ward, pastor of Zion Temple Baptist Church for the last 35 years in Joy Park area, graduate of Barberton High School, Faith International Seminary in Tacoma, Washington, and just glad to be a part of this commission.
Okay, let's see. Who else? Barbara?
Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Brown. I am an employee of Akron Children's Hospital, and my background is in human resources.
Did I miss anyone?
Rana.
Oh, Rana. Sorry.
That's okay. My name is Rana Matar. I work for the county. I work for the Summit County Clerk of Courts. Most of my life lived in Akron, graduate of the University of Akron, both for undergrad and grad, and involved in a couple organizations locally in the community. Thank you.
Okay. So in the subsequent meetings, I expect that we will have proposed charter changes presented to us by the law department for us to consider. As I understand it, there is not one scheduled for today. It did occur to me that we might be able to engage in some substantive discussion of a limited and very manageable topic, and that is the charter provisions on council procedures that could use some updating. So I wondered how you all felt about actually engaging in some substantive discussion.
I just wanted to bring one thing to note. I'm not sure if that was advertised on the agenda that was noticed publicly.
Okay.
So that may be a hindrance. Also, I know Council President Somerville was not able to make this meeting, and she may want to participate in that. So I do think there's a concern about the public notice, at least.
Yeah, right. So what else is on the public notice?
One thing we had there was, since you, Professor Rich, you have in the past have already engaged in and participated in this charter commission in the last round in 2010. Maybe you could provide just a little overview, we thought, for the group in terms of what to expect, what the goal is. So those who have not really been involved in this would have an understanding of what they would be working on.
Okay. So the city charter calls for a charter review commission to be constituted decennially. I did serve on the last one. The way it proceeded was there were a regularly scheduled meeting, well, more or less regularly scheduled meetings. And we tried to, take up particular topics in particular meetings and schedule, plan those ahead of time. Frequently they involved proposed charter changes that had been prepared ahead of time by the law department that reflected the agenda of the mayor or members of the city council. But each of the charter review commission members made their own review of the charter, and in some instances identified possible changes to consider, which we then did discuss. I'll give you an example of a change that that I have in mind that I'd like for us to discuss on a future date, and that is the 60-day deadline for citizen initiatives and charter amendments. This was a 60-day deadline was created back in the days before there was the UOCAVA law, the Uniform Overseas Voters Law, which requires that ballots be ready to be sent out by 45 days before Election Day. And the 60-day deadline is a problem from that perspective. And you may look at the charter and see some things that you might wish to have the commission consider proposing changes to. The Charter Review Commission does not actually put anything on the ballot. What it's really doing is making recommendations to the city council about charter changes to put on the ballot. It's ultimately up to the city council to decide which of those changes to put on the ballot and which ones to bundle together and which ones to leave separate. But I expect that, I know that the administration has some items that they would like us to address. And so I expect that those items will occupy us to a significant extent. Each meeting will have an agenda, and we'll proceed through that agenda in an orderly fashion with an opportunity for as much discussion as is needed of each of the items on the agenda. And we'll work our way through from one topic to another, one meeting to another, until we arrive at proposals. There will be, I think, toward the end, an opportunity for public participation. We'll have to see whether we're able to do that in person or whether that will have to be by online. Let's see, what else? What else would anybody like to know that I might be able to answer? We do need to figure out a schedule of meetings from now on.
If I might, Professor, when we have a particular item that's raised to us for review and consideration, do we, certainly whoever's the proponent will have a position as to why something needs to be done about it. Do we have does the city law take a sort of an unbiased view and give us recommendations about it or any kind of history on the particular provision? I was just sort of trying to get a sense for what kind of objective data we're able to bring into our review or is provided.
Well, I can say that, 10 years ago, the City Law Department provided quite substantial assistance to us in that respect and in drafting as well. And I'll let Eve comment, but I expect the Law Department plans to do likewise this time.
Yes, that's correct.
That was Eve's comment. Are there other questions?
I just had a quick question. I did see that what Ellen had sent us was the presentation of the recommendations was July 1st. Are we looking at possibly extending that due to the fact of the delayed interaction that we've had so far? Are we sticking with that deadline as far as what we're presenting?
Well, I will let Eve speak to that in a moment. But my recollection is that the charter actually prescribes the date we have to conclude. So I suppose your question is, in an emergency, are we really bound by that? But I think we do need to try to make that deadline if at all possible.
I think one thing to keep in mind, I think that's a great question, is if any of these items are to make it onto the ballot this year for the November election, they would need to be passed by city council essentially by the end of August, and council traditionally goes on a break for the entire month of August. So I think that's kind of where that deadline came from. That gives city council the month of July to do their process to debate and determine what of your recommendations they feel are worthy to go to the ballot and to the voters. So the concern with delaying that process would be that it would basically exclude 2020 as a year where we could take any of these to the voters. And if I could just add one other thing to Jim's question as well. I think that, you know, the law department, and we can speak with all of you here or separately about if you'd like to receive some of the proposals in advance. I'm assuming it would be the best case for you to be able to review materials before meetings, and then you can have in-depth discussion. I think at that time, if there's any questions or records or documents that you would like to review in order to assist you, obviously we are, you know, here to assist with that as well. There's, you know, a plethora of public records, and especially if we're given time in advance to gather that information, I know we would be happy to provide you with any of that data.
Let me add.
Items, if I could add, I think one aspect of this is the trying to get a sense of how many, what is the frequency of meetings, how many, what is the timing of the meetings because there is definitely a limited time frame here within which to accomplish the goal, which is to have this body be able to fashion out what it is recommending. And so I think that's one thing. I don't know, for example, if this time frame, this is a good one, and whether there's going to be some discussion on how to move forward with setting up, you know, enough time to be able to examine and discuss some of, you know, again, some of the suggested items and some of the things that may be on your mind. So there's kind of a mix here. There's certainly items that we will be bringing to your attention because we, of course, have studied this heavily, and we have some thoughts about some things that may just not make, that are in the charter that don't make sense anymore. And so you'll be seeing that certainly on our end as we fashion out, you know, what is an appropriate agenda to tackle a few subjects. So it, you know, there's an aspect of a work in progress, I think, to that as well. Trying to see what makes sense for a given meeting, you know, in terms of quantity of substance.
Let me just add that I'm strongly of the view that we do need to receive any proposals from the administration ahead of time, so we can have read them and thought about them and perhaps ask questions about them, ask for additional information. I think that would make this go a lot faster, and we do need to proceed apace. So let's
Sure.
plan on that.
Yes.
As far as the frequency of meetings, I guess I think that we probably need to meet at least weekly. I'm curious about other people's thoughts on that.
Professor Rich, Mark Ward, I'm scheduled to have a couple of hip replacements, and I want to be honest, I'm honored to even be considered to be a part of this commission, but with this upcoming surgeries that I'm going to have, I don't know if I'll be able to fulfill my obligation, and I want to be honest with you and the commission with that. And I won't know until my orthopedic surgeon gets back with me. Right now, the surgeries are postponed indefinitely because I'm going to have to stay a couple of days, you know, with the anesthesia in the hospital. And I was a chaplain also at Akron General, Cleveland Clinic, Akron General. So Professor Rich, my question is, being honest, I don't know if I will be able to fulfill this position or not with these surgeries coming up.
I understand. I guess we'll have to wait and see when it's scheduled for, right?
Okay.
And Pastor Ward, if you want to speak, you know, I'd be happy to take your concerns to the mayor, and we can talk about that, you know, separately if you feel that you need to step back, certainly we can talk about that and we can figure out legally how we would move forward. So, feel free to reach out to me if you have concerns or, you'd like to discuss maybe, stepping back from your participation. If you'd like to continue, I think that's certainly possible. I don't think there's any requirement that all members attend every meeting. I think it's like any other board, they would need to act with a majority, with a quorum present. So we can certainly handle that as it comes, or, we can discuss it and do whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay. Thanks.
So what do you think about meeting weekly?
I think that's a good plan.
I mean, it may turn out that we'll need to meet more than once in a week, but
maybe once we're into it, if we see we need to double up to get through our business, maybe we can do it then, but we could see what the pace is with a weekly meeting, at least through May. My thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with weekly as long as they're pre-scheduled.
I don't know.
Does this day and time work well for this group?
I would say there are going to be instances. I have work meetings, and obviously this is going to take the priority, but I am in the middle of my work day. An occasional evening meeting may be beneficial, but I don't know about everyone else's schedule. I can acquiesce to that.
Yeah, evening meetings could work well for me as well.
Same here.
I'd be open, just trying to get the church back in the data, then opening up the congregation again for when we can go back inside the building, but I can be flexible if I can move forward with this.
Yeah, and oftentimes bandwidth is a lot easier in the evenings.
seems to be a lot of sentiment for evening meetings.
I will remind everyone there's so if you feel like you're having the capacity by evening time to review a lot of it, there's a lot of I even know from some of the stuff that are going to be provided regarding HR, there's quite a bit of information and review. I think it makes sense that we would provide you these certainly beforehand, so you have ample time to review these. But just to keep that in mind as well.
Well, why don't we pick an evening of the week for a regular meeting? How's that? And let's not pick Friday.
On behalf of President Somerville, I'm going to ask that you not choose Mondays either as the meetings.
I would say Tuesday night for me is probably a pretty open night, especially Pedro, my son loves you. He loves playing baseball. Also Bennett, I think you know him from soccer and baseball, but he's looking forward to the season if it happens. But yeah,
we're hoping.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Tuesday nights would be perfect for me as well.
I'm sorry, you said Tuesdays or?
Tuesday evenings would be perfect.
Okay. Anybody have a problem with Tuesday evening?
What time?
Next Tuesday.
Sorry, I heard the question about what time, and somebody else spoke and I didn't hear that.
I was just going to say, my only concern is that I'm getting my hair cut for the first time in almost 10 weeks. Next Tuesday is 8 p.m. So.
At what time?
7:30.
Oh.
I mean, personally, I could wrap up what I needed to at work for today and be available by 4:30. I mean, that's not a problem on my end. If we wanted to do a late afternoon, early evening, so everyone still has most of their day, yet we're fulfilling our duties as part of the commission.
How would 5 o'clock on Tuesday be?
That'd be good.
Fine.
Perfect.
Fine.
It works for me.
Anybody have a
Are
problem with
we
it?
anticipating that the meetings will last an hour and a half? Will we have an agenda prior to so we know what to be prepared to discuss?
We will have an agenda. I would say that the meetings might vary somewhat in length depending on the agenda, but I would expect that, seems to me that given the amount of work that we need to do, an hour and a half to 2 hours, I would think would be about the length of time to anticipate. So, I mean, I think we should block out 5 to 7 and see if we can finish by 6:30.
It's like grad school, we'd have 3-hour classes, but they always end after 2.5.
Professor Rich's classes never end.
Yeah, never. Absolutely never.
That's why I never studied law. I stayed in Bliss.
Are we discussing the May 19th, Tuesday, May 19th?
That would be the next such Tuesday, yeah.
Okay, I have another preset meeting from 5:30 to 7 that day. I can try to work and get some things changed, but it was set quite a while ago. So that would be the only issue for the 19th. But I think if the majority is able to meet that day, I'll just go ahead and if it's a done deal, then I'll go ahead and change that up.
Well, I wouldn't call it a done deal, but it does sound like everybody else can make
Majority.
it.
Okay. All right, then that's fine.
I mean, we could consider a different evening that week or something, but
I have availability that whole week in the evenings, except for the 19th.
well, we could do Wednesday of next week and then Tuesdays of the following weeks. That's a proposal. Does that work for others?
That works for me.
I am not available Wednesdays and Fridays.
Oh, okay. I'll try another one. How about Thursday of next week?
Thursday works for me.
Let's see who it doesn't work for. Anybody?
It does not look good. But yeah, again, I think you have to have majority rule.
Yeah.
Well,
I would prefer a set schedule so I can just put it in there. And if
all right.
I make it a week, I can't make it.
Let's stick with Tuesdays at 5 o'clock, and it's understood that not necessarily everybody is going to be able to make it every meeting, as long as it looks like this is a time that is generally good for everybody, even if not every single week. Okay. All right.
And what we'll do is we'll plan to work with you on getting materials collected and distributed, so we can work with you on that. And then we'll make sure for the next, and then we can work with you on agenda and make sure that agenda is out obviously in advance of the meeting for everyone, so that they know what to focus on and they'll have the materials in advance.
Right. I'll work with the law department on that, and we'll have an agenda and materials before each of the meetings.
I just had a question. Did you want to publicize the schedule at all at this point? Do you want to just publicize every meeting before it takes place with that meeting's agenda? And then I didn't know if you wanted to determine now whether or which meetings would be having public participation, just so that we can make sure we have the IT set up for that, if that's going to be happening on Zoom. If you want to just plan for the next meeting on Tuesday to be noticed by itself and say no public participation, just the live streaming.
I would say the last.
Okay.
Because we at this point we don't know what sort of pace we'll be moving on. And so I don't think we know when we'll be ready for public participation. And it's at least possible that we'll end up changing the schedule. So if we've advertised it too far in advance, we may create confusion by changing the dates. So I think I would announce them, one meeting at a time, ahead of time, but one meeting at a time, and publish the agenda for that meeting would be my recommendation.
I do have
That's fine.
if I might.
No?
I might get the question of if people have comments or input they'd like to submit to the commission, how they should or could do that. Obviously, mail is slightly interrupted right now because we do have people checking the mail at the mayor's office or other, the law department, but it would be a process to scan that and get that to each of you. If you'd rather have an email address,
Yes.
we could probably work to have, charter review at akronohio.gov established. It might take a couple days, but we could do that. And
I think that's an excellent idea.
okay, I can work with IT on that, and then maybe we can include that in the next notice.
Is there any way, just because of my email issue, to send out a blast to the law? Because I never did get that email for the new coordinates for this meeting, that it could be changed everywhere, that my work email should be best to contact me at, so I don't miss out on anything.
Yeah, we can.
Thank you.
So is there anything else? Ellen, you got anything?
Nope. Thank you.
Nothing here.
Okay. I think we might be ready to adjourn our first meeting. Is there any objection to adjournment?
None.
No.
Then I hereby declare us adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.